Yo, what's up, guys? We're back for another breakdown and predictions video. This week it's going to be for the PFL 3 2023 card. It's a bit of a weird way that they have the card set up. They got the main event and then they got the prelims after. I'm not necessarily sure why. Maybe it's a ESPN thing, but I'm going to be breaking it down from the prelims to the main event. So I'm going to do the card opposite of what it is on Tapology, but besides that, guys, tomorrow I'm going to be breaking down this UFC card, Max Holloway against Arnold Allen. Pretty good card. There's some interesting fights throughout, so be sure to be on the lookout on the channel for that. And if you want to get the bets for UFC, for PFL, for Cage Warriors, for LFA, for all these events that are going down this week, you know where to go, patreon.com/MMA Prediction Guru. You get access to some of the bets in the world. So yeah, man, let's break down this first fight of the night. We got the champion of the PFL from last year at welterweight, Sadabusi, is going to be taking on Jera Hussein Al-Salawi. And this is a striker's delight, two guys that like to keep it on the feet and strike at range mostly. And one thing that Sadabusi has and utilizes over almost all of his opponents is that length and reach, man. The guy's 6'3", 80-inch reach. He's going to have an 8-inch reach advantage in this fight against Salawi, and that's going to be pretty apparent and a pretty big difference, I feel, throughout the fight and what leads him to victory, because Al-Salawi, counter striker, he likes to work the leg kicks, the counter lead hooks, and he has some power. He'll look for the big right hands as well, but he's not necessarily a guy that presses and goes first that often and tries to really make it more of a war or ugly fight. And I haven't really seen him look for takedowns either. He's more of a fighter that has good defensive grappling, but he does have power. That's something that you have to respect. If you're Sadabusi, you can't be lazy and get touched up by this guy on the chin, because he does have the power to put you out unconscious. But Sadabusi, I feel like in the type of fight that this is going to be, where it's a range striking fight between two guys that like to strike from the outside, I think that Sadabusi is just going to be able to use his length. He throws kicks to all parts of the body. He could stance switch. He has not necessarily a lot of power, but he just beats you up from range, stays active enough with the jab, with the check hook, with the rear cross, and he's really good at just racking up the numbers, staying safe, and winning on points. So I feel like that's kind of what we're going to see in this fight with Sadabusi once again. I don't necessarily see either fighter working takedowns, and I think that Al-Salawi, unless he can land that kill shot or maybe get ahead with some leg kicks, I don't see a lot of path to victory for him. He does have clean counter striking and some power, but I think that Sadabusi, with his big reach advantage, his ability to move and kick on the outside, stays active, I think that he's going to be able to just outnumber Al-Salawi, land more, be more active, and pick up the victory on points. So I'm going to go with Sadabusi here to win this fight via decision. And this next fight, I don't really got a ton to say about this one, with Magomed Karimov taking on Ben Egley. It's a battle of two grapplers, but I feel like Magomed Karimov is far superior on the feet. Probably going to want to keep it standing in this one, and he'll be able to use his speed and his footwork, overhands, to just beat up Egley all night. I think he has the potential to knock Egley out too, who's a very hittable, plotty guy. But Ben Egley is very tough. He's someone that could take damage, keep coming forward, and occasionally he'll blitz in with some decent punch combinations, but his striking is just not necessarily very effective. I feel like Magomed Karimov has much better striking. And as far as the wrestling goes, I don't see Egley possessing the wrestling that he needs to take down Magomed Karimov, and I think Magomed Karimov could take down Egley probably whenever he wants. But one thing about Ben Egley is he's a very active fighter on the jiu-jitsu scene. He has really good submission game, nice leg attack, so I think it would behoove Magomed Karimov to keep it on the feet more, utilize that striking advantage that he has, and just stay sharp, stay smart. Egley is a guy that's never been finished, so obviously he's going to be tough to get out of there. Don't try to knock him out right away. If you hurt him, stay diligent. Don't kind of get overzealous, and you could pick up an easy victory. I feel like Magomed Karimov on the feet, should be able to dominate the fight, and I think he could win this fight via decision or KO, TKO. So I'm going to pick him by decision. And usually when you see a Ov or a guy with the from Russia, from Dagestan, you're expecting him to win via wrestling heavy decision, but I think it's actually going to be a striking based decision for Magomed Karimov in this one. And I think he'll win pretty easily, probably 30-27, maybe even 30-26. This is kind of a tough one right here with Nathan Schult taking on Stevie Ray. And I get why Nathan Schult's a big favorite, but Stevie Ray has a lot of motivation right now if you know about his story going on. And I guess it could go either way, where it could be a distraction or it could be a very big motivator. But his daughter is going through some major issues right now. She needs a brain surgery, so he's been trying to get funds online. And obviously, winning $1 million would be a huge help towards aid and all that. And I hope everything goes good with him and his family in that fight. But talking about this matchup here with Nathan Schult, why I think it's a closer fight than the line indicates is because I'm not really that enthralled with Nathan Schult as a striker. He obviously is a good pressure fighter. He keeps the volume high. He'll throw leg kicks, crosses, and hooks on the inside, and very active, very durable fighter as well. But Stevie Ray has some power. He has good inside fighting as well with the elbows, and I think he could be competitive in the stand-up, and Stevie Ray also is a good grappler. His wrestling, defensively, I feel like is a little bit suspect, and I think Nathan Schult could take him down. But Ray's done a good job throughout his career of improving his ability to get up from bottom, attacking with leg attacks, things like that. We've seen him submit Paddy Pimblett in a jiu-jitsu match, but I feel like overall Nathan Schult is probably just going to be a little bit too much with his ability to mix it up and do it all and keep the volume super high. I feel like he could be a little bit competitive in a striking battle, then get a takedown and make that round pretty definitive. And I think even if Stevie Ray could use some submission attempts to get back up to his feet, I don't necessarily see him being able to sweep and do anything major on the mat against Schult. And I don't think unless he can hurt Schult multiple times, he's going to be able to keep up with the volume on the feet to defeat him. So I do think Nathan Schult will get the win, but I think Stevie Ray is live here just because Nathan Schult's a very hittable guy. Stevie Ray could hurt him, and the grappling could end up being more competitive than people think. So I think Stevie Ray at that number is the fighter that I would bet on. But as a pick, I'm going to pick Nathan Schult, and I'm going to pick him to win by decision. We got a fight between two PFL veterans, Roush Manfio, former winner of the PFL. Last year, he only had one fight. He lost that fight and didn't end up going to the playoffs. Alex Martinez is a guy that has been in the PFL, has made it to the playoffs, but has not won the tournament yet, so he's still trying to touch that $1 million, do what Roush Manfio has done in the past. And I was a little surprised to see the line in this one and see Manfio as the underdog, but I guess I can understand it just because of his sometimes lack of volume and just he doesn't do much and ends up losing the fight because of inactivity. But you look at the guy that he lost to, OEM, that's a pretty high-level opponent. He won the tournament last year, so I can't really shame him too much on that fight. Alex Martinez is someone that I don't think is on that same level, even though he's a pretty solid fighter as well. But when you see this, I think it's going to be a striking fight. Martinez may try to get some takedowns, but Roush Manfio has real solid takedown defense, real athletic, strong guy, and I think that Martinez, even though he has decent timing on his takedowns, isn't necessarily a great wrestler, and I don't see him being able to take Manfio to the ground or even really trying to take him to the ground too often. And Martinez is going to have to stay mobile. He's going to have to throw a lot of kicks. He's going to have to be active and try to be in and out with his striking, not stay in the pocket. Manfio is a very good striker. He's very technical. He has nice in and out movement, stands tall, he's fast, good leg kicks, nice check hook, and good rear overhands. But he tends to wait for his one big moment, doesn't necessarily throw many combinations, and he can be low volume, and if he can't find that kill shot, sometimes he can kind of just let the fight slip away by not doing enough. So it can be very frustrating to pick him and then see him not throw any strikes when you could potentially see that he could have some success if he were to let his hands go a little bit more. So ultimately, I think that Manfio is the much cleaner striker, but Martinez can be moving and grooving and trying to not get touched and just stay a little bit more active, playing tag a little bit. And one thing about Martinez, though, is he has been sat down in a few fights, and Manfio has power. That's one thing that he does possess. If he lands clean, he can knock you out. And with his composure and veteran savvy and just overall not really throwing too much volume, he keeps that power for 3 rounds. And Martinez sometimes gets slowed down a little bit. So ultimately, I am going to go with Manfio. I'm actually going to pick him by 3rd round KO TKO. I think that he's going to be able to use that effective pressure, maybe chop the leg a little bit, land a few strikes, and ultimately I think when Martinez gets more tired, Manfio could land that clean shot and get him out of there. I don't think that Martinez could bail himself out takedowns and control time, and I think Manfio's going to come in hungry, having not won a fight in a while. And if he loses this one, then I think it could be a sign that he's on the downside of his career. He isn't old or anything like that, but I think that this is a fight that he should win. I don't necessarily agree with the price. I think he should be the favorite in this one. I don't see Martinez taking him down, and I think that Manfio with his striking, crispness, and pressure eventually will start to get to Martinez, and even though Martinez could potentially out-volume him, I don't think he's going to land the impactful strikes that Manfio does, even if it goes to decision. And I'm going to go with Manfio on this one. So give me Roush Manfio to win this fight by 3rd round KO TKO. And this next one, we got 2 PFL newcomers, Naib Lopez taking on Shane Mitchell. And Naib Lopez, he's a wrestler. He's tall. He's 6'3". He uses link to back fighters up, and then you hit body locks. Good job on top of controlling, but kind of a lay and pray guy. It didn't seem like he was a great striker either. He stood flat-footed. Decent boxing, but low volume, hittable fighter. He does throw some sneaky hooks, but didn't really see anything on the outside from him striking-wise. Shane Mitchell, he's a good striker with good kicks. He's explosive with the hands when he lets his hands go. He could throw some big hooks, crosses, overhands, and throws kicks to all parts of the body fairly effectively. He is a little bit slow, and he can be low volume, but he has good finishing instincts when he hurts someone. And it's kind of difficult to find fights of Mitchell or recent fights, so he's a hard guy to cap. And his takedown defense looked a little questionable. He can also be held down, and being on bottom against Lopez is not where he wants to be. But I don't have a strong opinion on this fight because I don't know enough regarding Mitchell, but I'm going to pick Lopez to win by decision. He looks bigger, and he looks like the better wrestler, so I'm going to go with Naib Lopez by decision. Continuing on here, we got this next fight, Bruno Miranda versus Ahmed Amir. And Bruno Miranda, he is the fighter that's already been in the PFL. I believe he fought in the Challenger Series. I'm not sure if he's had a regular season fight yet, but he has some familiarity with the promotion, whereas Ahmed Amir is coming in off of a layoff, and he hasn't ever fought for the PFL, but Miranda hasn't fought for a year either. Amir hasn't fought for a year and 6 months, so both these fighters are coming off some time off. But style-wise, Miranda, he's explosive, he's powerful, likes to bounce around on the outside. You'll throw low kicks, big hooks, overhands, super wide looping shots, so sometimes he can land from far out, but he can also get countered with tight shots. And his striking is dangerous, but not very technical, and if he runs into a good striker, he probably will get knocked out. Bruno Miranda is a decent grappler. You'll see him attack with a lot of leg attacks, and his wrestling is sloppy, though. He can make mistakes that put him on bottom. Defensive wrestling did not seem to be the best, and he isn't a big submission threat. He only has 2 submission wins, but his opponent, Ahmed Amir, is a wrestler. On the feet, Amir has good footwork, movement. He feints well. He stays defensively sound, and his counterpunching ability is there when he lets his hands go. Great timing on his level changes. He'll throw 2 3s, 3 2s. And his wrestling is on point as well as his wrestling cardio, but sometimes he could struggle to set the takedowns up. His grappling is all right, but he doesn't have as good a top control as you would like to see. But he does have the cardio to get constant takedowns. And I do feel like matchup-wise, this should be a good matchup for Ahmed Amir. He could use his footwork, stay away from the big shots of Miranda, time takedowns. The only potential issue is how the layoff has affected him and potentially getting clipped against a real explosive guy like Miranda, also he has to come in on point cardio-wise because Miranda is going to be explosive, hard to hold down, and if Amir starts to get tired, then you could start to see the tide of the fight changing. But personally, I think that Amir should be the favorite. He was a big underdog, over 2-1. In full disclosure, I did place a bet on Amir, so I got him at a good price at, I believe, plus 240, and now it's almost a pick'em price. So I think that Amir still should be the favorite, but at this point, I don't know if I would necessarily recommend a bet on him because the line has shifted so much. But ultimately, I do think that Amir is going to get the win by decision. I just think he's going to be able to use his style, his ability to stay safe on the feet, time takedowns. His cardio is usually on point. So unless the travel or the layoff has affected that, then I think it's going to be a continuation of that. And I think that he's going to be able to get the job done. He's also the fighter coming in with the full camp, whereas Miranda's hopping in here on short notice. So that's also another factor. And I think that Amir is the far superior wrestler. I think that's going to be a big portion of the victory for him, and I think he can also land some strikes on the feet. So give me Amir as the underdog to get the job done here and win a decision. And this next fight, this should be a fun one. Anytime you got Brandon Jenkins in there, you got the chance of a real wild finish. But past fight for me, I'm not super interested in it from a betting perspective. Justola, he's the veteran, and he's the better fighter overall. He's technical everywhere, solid boxing, good jab, good 1-2. He has pretty good wrestling and grappling to go with it. And he's not super athletic or explosive, and his chin and defense are questionable. So it makes him a very iffy proposition in this type of matchup. It's someone that's untrustable, if you ask me. Justola is the bigger guy. He is the fighter that is more technical. He's going to be throwing more volume all around, and he can mix in the wrestling. So he does has more paths to victory. But Brandon Jenkins is a fun fighter to watch. He's not a great minute winner, but he's a striker that can look goofy sometimes, but is very dangerous. He could explode, find nasty knees, counter punches, big kicks. He has good spinning attacks, and when he lands clean, he could shut the lights off. His wrestling defense is questionable, but he's improving that. He's improving the get-ups, and he is just one of these guys that finds that chin. And the way that Justola backs up and sometimes the way he enters range, I think that he's ripe to get caught, man. I think that this fight could go either way because if Jenkins can't find that finish, he's probably going to lose. But I think he's going to be able to catch him in that first or second round and get the knockout personally. So Brandon Jenkins, for me, is going to be the pick. I think he's going to knock him out with something slick, something sweet, and it'll be a fun highlight reel. Another KO for Jenkins. Jenkins does have some good vibes coming into this fight with the PFL thing because he did get a highlight reel KO over Jacob Kilburn in his one and only PFL fight. He, I believe, is just a little bit more dynamic, and even though his opponent skill-wise is a little bit better overall, might be the bigger man too, I just think he's going to get caught, and Jenkins is going to go away with the knockout win. Kicking off the main card, this is going to be Delano Taylor against Magomed Umatov. And this is going to be a striking fight. Usually when you see a guy like Magomed Umalatov's name, you would expect a wrestler. And Umatov can wrestle, but primarily likes to counter-strike, and most of his wins are first-round knockouts. Delano Taylor is a long, agile guy who likes to pressure, and I could definitely see this fight being close unless someone can end it. Taylor's longer, probably a bit faster and more active with his kicks. He throws a lot of low kicks, front kicks. He isn't super high volume himself, but he has length and speed, so he can land some shots from the outside with the kicks, and he has okay jab, 1-2s. His hands, I wouldn't say are the best, though. And when he can land flush, he does have power, but I would say his defense is a little bit questionable. He does tend to hang his chin out there. Taylor has been finished by strikes twice as a pro and also got finished by strikes once as an amateur. Magomed Umatov is a loose, composed boxer. He finds the counter hooks and overhands, and when he connects, he puts guys lights out. He can really hurt guys. His last fight, he landed a real, I don't know, actually, I can't remember if it was his last fight, but his fight against Al-Salawi, he landed a real awkward back fist that ended up leading to the knockout for him. It didn't even seem like he threw with a lot of heat, so he definitely has some underrated or weird power. And his defense is on point, but he hasn't really faced too many strikers. We did see Umatov in his fight with Leandro Silva. He was a legit opponent, the striking was a little bit more competitive, and he did get hit a few times with some crosses in that fight. So that's why I think that Taylor could potentially be competitive in this fight if it doesn't get finished by Umatov. But I do think Umatov, with his movement and counters, will be able to win a decision or get the finish. I don't really see either fighter looking to wrestle. And cardio for both fighters is not an issue. They both have experience and good cardio. I personally feel as it's either going to be a first or second round knockout for Umatov or a decision win. But I think Taylor is definitely live if Umatov can't get the finish in the first round. I think with the money line, he definitely is a viable option to bet on. And for Umatov, I think him to win by KO TKO is a pretty good bet. And I feel like the money line, there's not really any value on Umatov, but if you do want to bet him, I think by knockout is probably the way to go. This next fight, I would say this is one of the best fights on the card. Underrated banger here. Carlos Leal, he's taking on David Zavada. And Carlos Leal, he's someone that came onto the scene last year in the PFL and made a big impact. He beat Ray Cooper. He was able to get close to becoming the champion. He lost in a close fight to Saad Boussi. And now he's going to be looking to come back and win that $1 million. But David Zavada, he's a guy that's making his first appearance in the PFL, but fought in some of the biggest promotions in the world, including the UFC, had success everywhere he's went. I guess you could say that the UFC stint wasn't that successful, but he was able to pick up a victory in the UFC and had some decent showings in other fights, fought some really high-level opponents as well. So I would say it was a good stint for him there, and he has a chance to get a big win here, kind of put himself on the map in terms of PFL competition and become one of the guys that could potentially be a player for the $1 million. So it's a big fight for both fighters. When you look at Carlos Leal, he's a straight-up pressure fighter, extremely good cardio, stays in your face, and he has pretty good volume as well. He throws a lot of crosses from the outside to get inside. Then you'll throw some hooks on the inside, body head. He throws good front kicks up the middle, round kicks to the legs and the body. And he does a decent job of pushing you against the cage, clinching you, looking for doubles, and trying to mix it up. But his wrestling isn't good, I would say. He makes a lot of mistakes in the wrestling. He can end up on his back, pulling guys on top of him and things like that. But his grappling is pretty high level. He's hard to hold down, and when he does get on top, he can do damage and go to work pretty effectively. And really his main weapon is his gas tank and his pressure and pace. He really weaponizes that and tries to break fighters down the stretch. So Leal is a fun fighter to watch, but I would say technically he's not the best. He really wins a lot of fights on his doggedness and kind of just tenaciousness, but he is very hittable, and he's also a guy that I would say doesn't have the best wrestling. But his opponent, David Zavada, well-rounded veteran, super aggressive, fast. I would say he's a significantly faster fighter. Throws to all parts of the body. He has big low kicks, 3-2s, fast hands on the inside. You'll rip the body to come up to the head. Nice front kicks. He pushes the pace. There's a ton of volume, very good pressure, good feints. And he is a little bit hittable. He can be clipped. And his durability, to me, is starting to become a question mark. I've seen him get hurt more and more in recent fights, and even though he's a hard fighter to finish and get out of there, he tends to brawl. He has been in a lot of fights at this point, and potentially it could be a sign that his chin is going a little bit. But he's very fast, very dangerous, and he's a guy that definitely, I believe, is the more technical striker. It's just if his chin is going to hold up, if it becomes a barroom brawl here with Leal, I think Leal is the more durable guy. But David Zavada, his wrestling and grappling is superior, I feel like. He can overextend and get taken down sometimes, but he's hard to hold down, and he'll throw up submissions. We saw him catch Abu Bakr under Magomed off the triangle off of his back, and he has the cardio to get taken down, get back up to his feet, and get right back in opponents' faces. So he does have that ability. Even if he gets taken down and can't get the submission, he can get back up and go to work again. And he isn't super active with his wrestling, but I've seen him take down wrestlers like Ramazan Amir. And obviously when he gets on top, he's dangerous with submissions. He goes for it. He's a ton of experience. He loves to fight. So I think this is a clear dogger pass, and I feel like it should be lined a lot closer to a pick'em than where the odds are at currently. But I don't know, man. Something's telling me to go with Leal and to fade Zavada. I think Zavada does a lot better in fights when he gets to fight over in Europe and overseas than he does in the United States, and I think that's going to be a factor. And I just feel like Leal with this pressure could sway the judges, even if it's a fight where Zavada does a little more damage. But I think if it becomes more of a grappling fight and Leal goes for some bad takedowns, Zavada could take advantage of that, get on top, and win this fight. And I think Zavada could land some heavy shots and exchanges and steal it on the feet too. So personally, I think it's definitely a dog or pass situation. But I'm going to pick Carlos Leal here to win a close competitive. Next, we got a heavyweight fight. Dennis Goltsov taking on Patrick Brady. And Dennis Goltsov, he's a PFL veteran. He's the much more experienced fighter here in this matchup. And he's good. He's very technical. He's athletic. He's 6'5" with a 78-inch reach and going to be significantly bigger than Patrick Brady. He also does a good job using his length on the feet. He has fast legs and can move in and out of range effectively. Very nice jab for Goltsov. Good job countering with check hooks, rear crosses. He does rely on his feet more than his head movement, so sometimes fighters can close a gap and clip him as he's trying to move backwards. And his speed is really good, though, for heavyweights. So most of the time, he does avoid getting hit and can stay safe standing. And he has pretty good wrestling as well. Good takedowns in the clinch against the cage. Top control is good. He's aggressive with the ground and pound. He'll attack submissions. His last loss to Ante Delija, he lost position a few times trying to move to the back mount. And off his back, he'll throw up submissions. But like most heavyweights, it's hard to win, submit, or stand up when you're on bottom. And defensive wrestling for Goltsov and just his ability to stand up when he gets taken down is a little bit questionable. The way to beat him outside of landing a knockout is to grind him out, but cardio is also an asset for Goltsov, and overall he's a tough guy to get out of there and a tough guy to beat. And Patrick Brady, he's a wild man, very dangerous. He's green, super inexperienced. He is taking a gigantic step up in competition. But he comes forward with big overhands, hooks, and he has speed, durability, some power. He'll go for it. He's willing to go to war, and he's durable. He is very hittable, though. He doesn't have great technical striking at all, and he tends to slow down in fights. He is an okay grappler. I've seen him look for takedowns against the cage. His submission game looks decent. When he gets on top, he has the ability to finish the fight, but his wrestling isn't that great. He hasn't faced a very good opponent or grappler yet, so we'll see how he handles that in this matchup if he gets put on his back. Cardio isn't an issue, I don't think, for Brady, because he has been able to battle through fatigue, but he does get pretty tired and sloppy. And now that he's facing a higher level opponent, I think it could potentially become an issue where it hasn't been in the past. And he has never lost, so he has that confidence, and he has the finishing ability to make him dangerous. But Goltsov is more experienced. He's bigger. He's better everywhere. And he should dominate the fight, finish the fight in the later rounds. With this being heavyweight and Brady having some power, he has a puncher's chance. But I'm going to pick Dennis Goltsov to win via second round KO. And this next fight, I'm pretty confident in my pick of Clay Collard here. I went and saw a few fights of Nishikawa's, and I think he's a decent fighter, but I think he's way undersized for lightweight. I think he doesn't cut any weight. He probably could even make 145, 135. And it's going to be his first fight out of Japan, which historically is a very tough thing to do for a lot of those Japanese fighters and a lot of U.S. fighters going to Japan as well. Just that travel is a dog, man. It's tough to perform after going on the plane for that long and having to acclimate and everything like that. And obviously, this is the biggest fight of Nishikawa's life, whereas Clay Collard has been in bigger fights in the past, and this is just another rodeo for him. And when you look at the style, Nishikawa is a guy that has that prototypical Japanese striking style where he's light on his feet, likes to move around to the outside, dart in, dart out with the power crosses and combinations, 1-2s and 2-3s, and he's pretty fast, but he's hittable. It doesn't seem like he has the greatest chin, if you ask me. He gets hurt quite a bit in his fights, and he doesn't have that crazy one-punch power either. Does seem like he has some pop, so Collard, early in the fight, probably the first round, he has to get the beat on the rhythm that Nishikawa's striking, the movement that he has, and his speed closing the distance, because I do think he might touch Collard a few times. But I think once Collard gets that, could start to walk him down and cut the cage off, it could start to become a long night for Nishikawa. And Nishikawa will mix in some takedowns, but his wrestling seems to be kind of a weak point of his game, and I think Collard is a superior wrestler and grappler. I think the size also will play a factor if they do end up in wrestling and grappling exchanges. But Clay Collard is predominantly a boxer. He's one of the better boxers in MMA, I would argue. And even though his defense isn't good, he throws an extremely high amount of volume. He rips the body, comes up to the head. He has some pretty good pop in his punches. He doesn't have crazy power, but he doesn't need it with the volume that he throws, and he does have enough power to keep opponents honest. And I think in this fight, he's going to have the much better hands in the pocket. I think he's going to have the pressure, and once he starts to get Nishikawa where he wants him to be, which is more static on the inside, I think he's going to really piece him up. And I also think Collard can mix in some takedowns too if he wants to, and use his size to wear on Nishikawa, get him a little tired, and then open up his hands even more. And I am expecting Collard to get the finish in this one in the second or third. I just think he's going to touch that chin and get him out of there. I think that it's too big of a step up experience-wise for Nishikawa. I think that the size is going to play a factor. I think the travel is going to play a factor. And I just think Clay Collard is the better overall fighter. So I'm going to go with Clay Collard to win this fight inside the distance. Finally, we got the main event here. We got OAM, Olivier, Alban, Mercier, who's undefeated so far in the PFL, is coming off winning the PFL season last year. And he's going to be taking on the newcomer, Shane Burgos, who's fresh off of his UFC stint where he was ranked in the top 15 at 145. Dana White came out after the PFL signed him, said they made a mistake. So obviously he had a lot of praise for Burgos and still thinks he has a bright future in the sport. And Burgos is moving up to 155 pounds here. Said that the weight cut to 45 was really rough on him, and he feels the best he's ever felt at 155 this week in this training camp. So we'll see if that actually translates to him having a great performance in the cage. But when you look at how both these guys match up, I think on the feet, Shane Burgos is pretty superior. He has the big reach advantage. He's the pressure fighter. He throws way more volume, and he has this significantly better hands. But Burgos, he doesn't really have the best defense. He's hittable, and OAM is going to be coming with the big body kicks from southpaw. He's going to be coming with the front knees up the middle from southpaw, and he's going to be coming with the crosses and check hooks. So OAM doesn't really have that big power in his hands, but I think early on Burgos needs to be a little bit careful, because I do expect OAM to try to sit down on some shots and get some respect early, and Burgos can't just walk into punches and not respect the power of OAM. But I think Burgos has fought heavier hitters and taken their shots and been able to keep pressing forward. And I think that Burgos' style on the feet, with his pocket brawling, his leg kicks, his ability to land to the body and land to the head, his super high volume, is going to give issues to OAM, who's more low volume, more 1-2 shot at a time type of striker. He's a guy that wants to fight at a controlled pace, and I think that OAM could really struggle with the amount of volume that Burgos puts out there. So I think that OAM is going to come in here wanting to get the takedowns and control the fight against the cage or on the ground. And obviously OAM is a high-level grappler. He has good body locks, good back takes, and can submit or control guys on the mat. But I think that Burgos is a fighter that early on he might get taken down, but he's a hard guy to hold down, and he's a hard guy to take down and control over 3 rounds. I think that OAM, not necessarily being the greatest wrestler, is going to struggle to find those entries over 3 rounds or 2 rounds. And I feel like it's going to be a striking fight for predominantly most of the minutes. So ultimately I am going to go with the underdog. I'm going to go with the newcomer in Shane Burgos. I think that he can keep it standing. He can pressure. He can attack the calf. He can attack the body, come up to the head, and he can land the more volume and the higher work rate. I think that he could kind of shut down what OAM wants to do in terms of the takedowns in the wrestling. And I don't think OAM is going to have enough power to hurt Burgos and stop him from wanting to pressure him. So ultimately, I think Burgos is going to show a better gas tank down the stretch too. And I'm going to go with Shane Burgos to win this fight via decision. So give me Shane Burgos in this one. Get the job done as a slight underdog. And I just feel like he's going to want it a little more too. OAM just won that $1 million. And Shane Burgos is coming in here trying to get that million. So I think that's another factor. And I'm going to go Shane Burgos here to get the job done. So there you have it, guys. That's my full card breakdown and predictions video for PFL 3 2023 regular season. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully you guys are going to watch that show on Friday and have some fun, because I think this is a much better show and much better product than PFL has given out the last two events that they've done. And besides that, like I said at the top of the video, I am going to be putting out this UFC breakdown and predictions video for Kansas City, Max Holloway versus Arnold Allen tomorrow. So be on the lookout for that on the channel. And I'm having bets up already for PFL. I have 3 or 4 bets. I have bets for UFC. I have a bet for LFA already live. So definitely go to patreon.com/MMA Prediction Guru. Support the channel. Make yourself some money on some bets. I'm in the top 10 in the world in units profit on BetMMA.tips, and I've been profitable every single year for 5 consecutive years. I feel like I'm one of the best cappers in the world for MMA. So if you go over to patreon.com/MMA Prediction Guru, not only will you be supporting the channel, you will be getting some of the best advice and almost guaranteed money yearly. So definitely think that it's worth it. Thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for always supporting the channel, and make sure to come back and watch that UFC breakdown video tomorrow.